Hello everyone and welcome to Zappy Productions, and today I'll be reviewing the Hidizs MS3. Now this is a copy provided to me by Hidizs, and I'd like to thank them for the chance to review this IEM. I had this for about a week now and I've been using it every day through various means, like through my M17 field, through my handphone with an adapter, and of course through the wireless adapter I have, which is the very cheap BT20XS, very affordable one, and all of them kind of work with this IEM. But I'll talk about amplification a bit later at the end of the video. Let's look at this IEM here. Once again, thanks to Hidizs for this. They only tell me to do a review and take some nice photos. No other requirements, so let's see what does this IEM actually produce. Now, let's take a look at what's inside the box here. I always like to show what's inside the box. This is, of course, the box itself. The IEMs are here. Of course, I've taken it out already. And then it comes with this. I really like this. Let me show you. Now, this is a plate with all the tips here. And then with the filters. Now, the best thing is that all the items are actually labeled. Like this is the vocal tip. This is the bass tip. This is the balance tip, and then of course a bunch of filters here. Now the filters are not labeled. They should have went the extra mile, if you ask me, and just label everything. It'd be great. But just know that the silver here is the treble filter or high frequency filter, and this is the bass filter, while the default one on the IEM is actually the balance filter itself. These filters do change the sound significantly. I'll talk about it more in the sound section, but you can see that I'm using the gold tip because obviously the red and the silver is here. Now this final box here is actually just instructions and the carrying case. I just want to talk about the carrying case a bit. Now the Hidizs carrying case is this kind of soft pouch. Soft pouch, well, I think it's fine to protect the IEM against scratches, but to put in the pocket, not the safest thing. I would rather have a much cheaper crush-proof case like this kind, because it does protect the IEM a little bit more. But I think this is fine if you really just want to carry around with a pocket and nothing else. I mean, if you are going to have a pocket with your handphones and stuff, maybe not the best. But this case is not a simple one. It has magnets, or I don't know, I think metal. But yeah, it does shut like this. You notice? Quite a cool one. Now, when you do buy it, this pouch also holds the cables. Now, the cables is here. This is the cable. I think the cable is really nice. It's quite thick and relatively, tangle-free type. Doesn't have much memory. It's a little bit of memory, but quite minimal. It's quite strong and thick, if you ask me. It looks really nice. I mean, this slightly brownish copper color, and then it ends off with 0.78 2 pins. Now, the 0.78 2 pins are quite unique. Let me show you. See, if you see here, these 0.78 2 pins are like this, and it does jut out and slightly in. You see, notice the shape is not in the center exactly. So if you do wear it, it actually hangs out slightly at the side of the ear, and then it pushes the IEM in. It does make the IEM a little bit more comfortable, and it's pretty good. There's some memory plastic here to hold the cables at the end to the shape for the hooking on the ear. I do like this. I remember there was an IEM, I think by Etymotix, that didn't have this, and it was quite bad. Now, the only downside to this cable is that this is the non-adaptable type, so it has only the 3.5 or the 4.4. Modern IEMs do give the options, to have the various adapters. But no, one thing, this IEM costs only 119 USD at the point of this video, so I guess I don't have much complaints. I mean, the cable is good, accessories are great, the IEM's also nice. So for the price is, I guess, give as much as possible. Now let's talk about the IEMs itself. I put it in my hand here. You can see this is the IEMs. Now the IEMs are made purely metal. You can hear. This is a pure metal, so it is aluminium with coating. I like this coating. It's pretty nice. It doesn't absorb much of the fingerprints and stuff, so it doesn't get dirty and messy. Semi-matte, semi-shiny, so pretty nice. And the shape of it, you can notice it is slightly molded to the shape of the ear. So it does hold nicely in the ear. I'll talk about it in the comfort section. Now this is the vocal tip, a small one. I'll talk about this in the sound section. For this, as you can see, this is the 2 pin. It's 0.78 2 pin. Now, this 2 pin is slightly out. No, unlike the SimGod EA1000 that I reviewed recently that is recessed, this is jutting out. So good, you can actually plug cables in easily. Almost any cable should be able to fit into this. I did notice one thing is that this is actually quite tight. This, for whatever reason, the 0.78 pins here are really tight. At first I was thinking maybe this is a 0.75, but no, it's a 0.78. It's just really, really tight. A lot of the cables and even the wireless adapter, I had to, use a little bit more force than expected to plug it in. Now the surface here, you can see here, there's some patterns. It's pretty okay, nothing too special. And then there's of course a lining around it. Overall, I think this IEM looks really good and feels really good. I mean, pure aluminum. And the profile is actually also quite slim. You can see this. It's actually quite slim of a profile. And you can see, of course, Hidizs MS3 here, written on the IEM. Now, the weight of the IEM is quite light. Let me weigh if you see. This is, of course, my coffee weighing machine, and it goes to 0.1 for the grams itself, and this is about 7.5 grams. You can see it is really, really light. Very, very light IEM. Overall, I think the build quality, the things provided, everything, the whole packaging is very well thought of, very nice. And for $119, this is actually really, really nice in terms of build quality and packaging. Really no complaints when it comes to those two parameters itself. So let's talk about comfort a little bit. Now, this IEM, as I say, is molded to the ear, so you can see there is actually some shapes. And as such, it does go into the ear and is held there by the shape of my ear, not held by, the canal and the cable, which I don't like. I think that, that is really wonky, and if you move around, this thing will actually dislodge, you lose the seal, or it will just come out totally if you just move really, really quick. So this is nice. I like it held by my ear itself, by the ear shape. And you can see that the profile is actually quite thin, so it's quite flat, and as such, you can actually use this while lying on the bed. As long as it's a soft pillow, when you lie at the side, it will not cause much discomfort, just a little bit, but not much, and it's because it's quite flat in terms of its profile. For my ear, actually, it is flat with my ears, which is really nice. I really enjoy using this IEM. Comfort-wise, I think this is probably as good as it gets. And considering the weight of 7.5, not 7.5 grams, this is a really light IEM, and you don't feel the weight at all in your ears. Comfort, almost close to full mark for this. Probably as good as it gets, really. I personally prefer acrylic than metal, and purely because metal case do get cold in colder environments. Acrylic case do not, so that's probably the difference. But other than that, I don't have much complaint. I think it's a very, very nice IEM, very comfortable in every single way. So that's about it for the packaging, build, and comfort. So now let's talk about sound quality to this IEM. Now, this IEM itself is a triple driver, 1 DD and 2 BA, 2 balanced amateur, and 1 dynamic driver. So it's a triple driver system itself. Now, this triple driver system, it's pretty okay. I mean, for this price point these days, I'm not too surprised anymore. So the most important part is, how's the tuning like? Do you enjoy it? Now, the tuning of this IEM is supposed to follow Harman 2019 curve. Now, I have to honestly say, I'm not a fan of the Harman 2019 curve. I have listened a few IEMs, some that follow the curve, some that don't follow the curve. And generally, I think the Harman curve was a bit too, I'll say it's picky and too spicy for me. And in fact, this is really the IEM sound signature, a very slightly spicy IEM sound, which, personally, I don't really quite like. But that's in the default state. So, after I changed the tip from the balanced one to the vocal tip, as you can see, the one that is missing here, it actually does make it a lot better because it leaves the mids slightly, so I reduce the overall volume slightly, and as such, now the highs are no longer as spicy and hot to me compared to the default state with the balanced tips. So I do enjoy a little bit more than when I first wore it with the balanced tips. I mean, if I was to look at this plate, I would try the balance first to ensure whether I love the sound or not, and then after that I start using the rest. Now, in regards to the filters, notice that I'm using the gold filter. Let me take this off. It's a bit hard to put it back, so I'll just leave it off first. Now, this is the rose gold filter. You can see it's like goldish rose color, and this is the balance filter. Now the balance filter on general, if you were to use the balance tip, has a slightly recessed mid, slightly elevated bass, especially for sub-bass region, and a slightly elevated, I think, 5 to 8K region. It does have some sibilance in certain songs. And if you use a balance tip, it really sounds exactly like what I described just now. So at first I tried using the filters. Now the silver filter is of course no go. I mean, I do not need any more high frequencies, so no high frequency filter for me. It's just really too spicy out of the box. And then there is of course the bass filter. Now the bass filter makes the overall sound a little bit muddier. It makes the bass a bit too loose for me. So in the end I say, no, the filter doesn't work. Yes, it does reduce the spiciness of the IEMs just a little bit, but no, I think this makes it too muddy. As such, in the end of the day, I use the balance filter still, but I changed to this vocal tip, and I can tell you this is a major improvement. It actually reduced the spiciness quite significant. In fact, the only song that was still spicy was Shatter Me. That was still a very spicy sounding song to me. The sibilance, especially in the higher mids and lower treble, was a little bit too much and very fatiguing for that particular song. But every other song I think is just nice. In fact, it makes the overall instruments a bit more distinct, and it does make certain percussion instrument a little bit more lively and right. So just Shatter Me isn't that great with this particular IEM, at least with the songs I tested. But that's it. Now let's talk about general sound quality. The filters I have explained, the tips I have explained. You can just say that after with this vocal filter, vocal ear tip, not filter, vocal ear tip and a balanced filter, overall sound signature is a relatively balanced sound, slightly elevated bass and slightly elevated treble. So the general tonality, however, is a bit of a warmish sound. It's actually not exactly neutral, it's slightly towards the warm side. However, even though it's slightly towards the warm side, it still has that spicy treble. It's quite interesting, if you ask me. Definitely not the cool and bright, not the neutral bright. It is like neutral warm with a spicy treble. That is really how I would describe this. However, of course, once again, with this vocal tip, it is quite balanced overall in terms of sound. So I really don't have much complaints on the balance of the sound itself. At least the mids now sound proper with good body, and I quite like it. Now, when it comes to the clarity and detail, I think this thing is actually really clear in a lot of details. In fact, I can hear a lot of details in the bass region, such as from the Witch of Mercury, the smaller drums that hit at the side, or from songs like One Winged Angel, which have multiple instruments, or like Suzume, which has instruments of all different frequency, plus vocal, plus chanting. It is actually really clear and detailed on this IEM. I think clarity and detail is no problem. This IEM is actually really well designed. The clarity and detail is up there. And then when it comes to soundstage, however, I feel that the soundstage is quite small. So to really illustrate, let's say, let me take something here to illustrate. Let's say this is your head. Your head is like oval shaped this way, right? Your ears are down here. Let's say the two IEMs are at this side. Oh, my focusing system is a bit off. Let me use something slightly easier. Now, imagine this is your head, and then the two IEMs are at the side here. Now, how I usually gauge soundstage is if I was to close my eyes and try to, imagine the sound itself, the width of the sound, then I would say as most IEMs are somewhere here. Big headphones such as, let's say Susvara, or maybe something like the recently Warwick Bravara, or even like the Atrium Open, it'd be like here, this huge. While most IEMs, as I say, here. And while this IEM is a bit smaller, it's like here. It's just slightly out of the ear, like a few cm out of the ear. And then, if I was to really listen, and if the song wasn't designed to have soundstage, it can be actually inside the head itself. So I think the soundstage wise, I think it's more of the slightly smaller soundstage for IEMs. Not the smallest, actually, in fact, if you compare to the Truth Year Zero, I think it's a very popular IEM today. The Truth Year Zero, that is even smaller in soundstage. But almost every other IEM in the 100 plus mark that I have tried so far has the same, or if not bigger soundstage than this, so that's something to note. But then again, I don't use much IEM, so that is, you have to take what I say in consideration for it. Okay, so that is soundstage. Now, in terms of separation, once again, this separation is really good. I think it's helped out by the elevated frequency in the 5 to 8K mark. And then not only that, the clarity is really good. So the overall separation for instruments are quite nice. You can really focus on any instrument that is playing the scene quite well. Once again, in orchestra tracks like one which from Mercury, or even in modern rock and pop tracks such as Unravel or even Ibarra from Edo. So I think this is pretty nice when it comes to separation. But however, when it comes to positioning, that is where things get limited, because firstly, the soundstage is quite small, so the positioning is really left, center, right, and the positioning isn't very distinct. You don't hear moving instruments and stuff. So usually, I will just hear 3 separate bubbles of sound. Now, unless the music instruments are all the way to the left or all the way to the right, generally positioning is just these 3 bubbles. It's quite limited. So together with soundstage, these are the 2 limitations of this particular earphones, which is the MS3. Now, when it comes to the bass here has good amount of quantity. I wouldn't say it's overwhelming. It's definitely lesser than, say, those that is tuned by Chronicle. I think that those are a little bit more bassy. But this sound signature here is actually quite good. It's quite, I would say it's bassy enough. Definitely lower than Variation. If you have heard the Moondrop Variation, this is lower than the Variation in terms of quantity of bass. The sub bass is quite elevated, and the sub bass have good details and texture. Surprisingly, very good details and texture for the sub bass for this IEM. So when I hear Ultima, there was these horns in between. It is very clear. You can hear the rippling sound on this IEM itself. However, when it comes to the bass impact, I think there is good quantity, there is good impact, but I do think that the impulse, the initial slam felt a little bit rounded, not as tight as I like it to be. So if you are looking for very, very tight impact bass, this is probably not the IEM. It is good bass, it is good impact, but definitely not the tightest I ever heard. And there is many IEMs I feel is slightly tighter than this, but most of them do cost more than this, so there's something to be fair. If you compare to the Truth Year Zero, this is tighter than the Truth Year Zero, definitely. But if you compare to, say, the Sim God EA 1000 recently I reviewed, that is significantly tighter for the bass impact, even though the sub bass here is a lot better. I would say it's the whole texture and detail in the sub bass is a lot better in the MS3. So when it comes to the mids, I would say as the mids are good body and generally quite balanced with the rest of the signature. Maybe slightly softer, because I mean the bass and the treble is slightly higher on this IEM. Now, this is of course with the vocal ear tips, because the original balanced ear tips, as shown here, balanced ear tip. Now, it does make the mids recessed to me and a bit thin in body. But once you put on this tip, it sounds a lot better. It makes the whole vocal smooth, a decent amount of body, not the most body I say, a decent amount of body, and generally powerful sounding, at least with the tips. And then for the mids instruments such as violins and guitars that you can hear in, say, songs like Ibarra or songs like Shatter Me, I would say it sounds right. It sounds correct. I wouldn't say they sound the greatest nor the most powerful or the smoothest for those instruments, but definitely they sound right, and I don't have much complaints on the mids instrument. It doesn't feel like there's any frequency that is wrong. So overall, I do enjoy the mids here. I would have preferred if the mids are slightly more powerful sounding, but that will come at the cost of either the bass or the treble. So that's something, I think this is perfectly okay. Now, in the higher mids, I do feel like there is some sibilance. As I said, in Shatter Me, it is a bit of fatiguing to listen for that particular song. Most other songs I feel are okay. It's just Shatter Me, because that song has a lot of violins that are high frequencies together with vocals, especially female vocals. Combined together, it was a fatiguing experience. But other songs such as Suzume, One Wing Angel, Ultima, Yusha, which is The Brave, and then Unravel by Edo. Most of Edo's songs sounds great with this. I mean, Edo's voice is a bit pitchy, so occasionally there are some sibilance, but there is occasional and it sounds pretty natural to me, so I do enjoy them. It's only Shatter Me that makes it sometimes in the higher mids a bit unbearable. Now, when it comes to treble, as I said, this is a spicy sounding IEM. It does have slightly elevated treble. Not to the extent that it's harsh and unlistenable, but slightly spicy. So when you hear cymbals and bells, I think that they have quite a bit of sparkle, and sometimes it can be quite a little bit too much, just quite a little bit too much in certain songs. But more often than not, those instruments are usually at the background and softer, and actually with this elevated treble, it does make those instruments, I would say, as more sparkly, more right. In fact, I think the sparkly treble do help in a lot of the songs because the cymbals and bells actually sound more realistic. It sounds like there's this impulse spark when you hit those instruments itself. Now, that being said, even though they are sparkly, they don't sound metallic, they don't sound wrong. So I do enjoy it. The treble on general, if it's not a treble heavy song, this IEM do make it sound pretty good. I have to say the truth. So you can see so far that throughout the review, I think if I want to summarize this, it's a very enjoyable IEM, especially with this configuration. It is quite balanced. The overall sound signature is really nice for me. The only few concerns, of course, is the smaller soundstage, the relatively limited positioning, and of course a slightly spicy treble, which in certain songs, especially with a lot of high frequency mids and vocals of female types, may make it a little bit sibilant and a bit fatiguing. But if you're not listening to those type of songs, I think it's perfectly good. I mean, I have to honestly say 80% of my songs have no issues with this IEM. 80 to 90%. I think only like maybe 2 or 3 of them really felt off with this IEM. If not, it is generally quite good. But it also does mean that this is, I would say, is usable for most, but not every single song. And I guess this is probably not the IEM I will first reach out, if I want to listen to a particular track. I'll probably reach out to something a little bit more tamed in the treble so that I can enjoy the track first and then maybe find the appropriate IEMs or headphones to make it sound better. Okay, so that's something. Now, when it comes to amplification, so I tried quite a bit of things. I mean, if you have seen my reviews, I do have quite a little bit of devices for MDEX. So I do have like these kind of adapters, and once again, like my previous review, I think adapters mostly change how harsh this IEM sound. So this is no go. This makes it even harsher. This is fine, still a bit harsh. I don't enjoy it. I also tried like the M15 first, right? This is the Quick Start M15, which is this guy here. Now this guy does sound a little bit bright, a little bit harsh still, and personally I don't enjoy it too much with the Quick Start here. What I do enjoy it, however, is this. The M17 is actually quite smooth. This is of course a relatively high-end deck, but it has a smooth deck and a relatively neutral amp, which is quite powerful. Surprisingly, it sounds really, really good with this. It sounds probably the best combination if it's not some special amp. This combination here actually beats running this IEM with the Hugo TT. I actually tried with the Hugo TT. I felt that was a bit too bright and makes it even harsher. So this guy here actually sounds the best with the M17. I love this combination, the best for general usage. Now, of course, once again, with every kind of test like this, I like to try with my most extreme amplifier for portable, and that is the Enlem. You can see here, the focusing is off. This is the Enlem M, and this is a current and voltage amplifier. So for the voltage amplification, I still prefer the M17 slightly. I think the M17 is a bit more smoother overall. That's just me. I mean, the Enlem is pretty okay. I guess it sounds really nice, but for some reason I do like this a little bit better. But with the current out, things are really, really interesting. This is the current output. It's a total different type of amplification, and if your IEMs are not, I would say, as a flat impedance, especially for multi-driver IEMs, they are not flat impedance. They tend to sound a little bit different from their usual sound. And for that, I would say as the Enlem actually is the best filter or the best EQ for this IEM, it actually does reduce the treble significantly. From there is some harshness, some sibilance occasionally, to there is no more sibilance and harshness. Now, it does mean that if the song has treble and higher mids, in certain tracks, I would say they may sound just a little bit dull. But if not, most other tracks actually sound really nice, really warm. It does increase the warmness of this IEM. It may be too warm for some people, and it may be too smooth for some people, and also it may be too dull for some people if you like a bit of spiciness inside your song. But for me, actually, it was the interestingly enjoyable setup. In fact, it is the type of setup that I would just want to lie back and relax, because it's so just smooth, good details, good punch, good bass, and none of the harshness at all. None of the sibilance, none of the spiciness. So I enjoyed the combination. But I don't think that is the right sound, and I think many people may be turned off by it because of its warm and relatively low treble sound, I mean, music is just very personal. So I don't think I will recommend it, because the improvement is too subjective to be recommended. So for the price, especially at the point of this writing, I think it's something that is worth to try. And if you love the Harman sound signature, this is something that you will really like. I mean, if you just like the slightly spicy treble, this is great. I mean, it's spicy, it's just spicy slightly. Though I would say, as if I was to put a balanced tip, it will become harsh to me. But with the vocal tips, it just sounds spicy and it's really enjoyable. And that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed this short little review of the Hidizs MS3. I did enjoy using this. Oh yeah, there's one last thing I want to talk about. Just one last one. Now, the configuration I enjoy the most is, of course, with the wireless. And there's a good reason for it, because this guy here doesn't require too much amplification. And with this, it does run to good amount of volume. You don't need to max it out on your phone. And it is very clear, very clean, and maintains most of the characteristics. Surprisingly, it's not very harsh with this, even though the amplification I don't think is that good, but it's not harsh with this. So it is a very enjoyable combination. This is the, I think, TRM BT20XS. Very, very affordable, $20 wireless adapter, but it sounds good with this guy. And also, there is not much interference with this. I did notice that this guy have a lot of interference with the EA1000, but very little with this Hidizs here. So highly recommended to try this out together with the Hidizs itself. The MS3 overall, nice IEM, and if you have the chance, do try it out. But if not, the price is quite low. It is definitely an upgrade over the cheaper ones, and something to consider if you like the Harman 2019 sound. That's about for today. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.